Solving equations, specifically simple equations. In this lesson, we need to talk about the different properties of equality. We have addition property, subtraction, multiplication, and division. This deals with all equations, which means that you have an equal sign in the middle of each of the numbers. The properties are all similar except for the different operations. Basically what happens is, for especially the addition property of equality, if you add the same number to each side of the equation, it produces an equivalent equation. If you look in the algebra section, on the right-hand side, you can see an example. If A equals B, then A plus C equals B plus C. Basically, it means if you add the same number, which they're replacing C with the number, then if you add it to both sides, the equation will still stay equal. This is the same thing that happens with the subtraction property of equality by subtracting the same number on both sides, multiplication property of equality with multiplying the same number on each side, and division property of equality by dividing the same number to both sides. It's very important to understand the actual inverse operations. Inverse means opposite, so what we're going to talk about today are the opposite equations or opposite in operation. The opposite of addition is subtraction. So if you see something added, you're going to subtract to do the opposite or the inverse operation. So if you see something subtracted, the inverse operation to that is addition. Multiplication's inverse operation is division. And then division's inverse operation is multiplication. Please make sure you write this on the side of your notes. Now we're going to talk about some actual examples to go over. Let's start with the very first one. M minus 17 equals 3. What we want to do is get the m by itself. Since 17 is being subtracted, we think about the inverse operation. The subtraction inverse operation is addition. So what we do is we add 17 to make it equal to 0. Minus 17 plus 17, well, those cancel out and create 0, where we're left with m on the left side of our equation. Now we're thinking about the addition property of equality that we learned about on the first slide. Since we added something on one side of the equation, we have to do it on the other. So you add 17 to the other side of the equation. 3 plus 17 is 20, so m equals 20. To check your work, all you do is you plug in 20 for the m in your equation. So instead of m minus 17, you have 20 minus 17, and you hope that it equals 3. 20 minus 17 is 3. 3 equals 3, so you know that the answer is correct. Now it's time for negative 28 equals 4h. 4h is what we're going to look at first. We want the h to be by itself. When you have 4h, that is the same thing as 4 times h, so we have to do the inverse operation. So what we end up doing is we divide by 4. Now remember, with the division property of equality, you have to do it on both sides. 4 divided by 4 is 1, which means 1h is left, which is what we want. They cancel out. Negative 28 divided by 4 is a negative 7. So negative 7 is equal to h. To check your answer, what you do is you plug in negative 7 for h. So you rewrite the equation, negative 28 equals 4, but instead of 4 times h, it's 4 times negative 7. 4 times negative 7 is negative 28, so we know that our answer is checked and correct. I'm going to have you try these two problems on your own so that we can move on to more examples. I'm going to do r minus 5 pi equals 7 pi with you. Yes, we have pi as a symbol, but that's not the variable we're solving for. We're solving for r. So what we need to do is we need to move this 5 pi to the other side of the equation or cancel it out. Since it's subtraction, we're going to add using the inverse properties. The addition property of equality says that we have to add to both sides of the equation to make it equal. Negative 5 pi or minus 5 pi plus 5 pi cancel out. We're left with r on the left side of our equation. 7 pi plus 5 pi, all you do are add the numbers and keep your symbol. The answer is r equals 12 pi. To check your work again, you plug in 12 pi for r. Instead of r minus 5 pi, it's 12 pi minus 5 pi equals 7 pi, we hope. 12 minus 5 is 7. You bring the pi as well. 7 pi does equal 7 pi. You checked it off and you're done. Next we're going to do w minus 4 divided by 1/2 equals 5. What you need to do first is make sure that the left side of your equation is simplified. That means you can do all the things on the left side of the equation first. We're going to do 4 divided by 1/2. As we learned with fractions, you create 4 into a fraction, which is 4 over 1, and you multiply the inverse. Divided by 1/2 is the same as times 2 over 1. You flip the fraction. When you multiply fractions, you multiply across, and we have 8 over 1, or just 8. Now we're going to replace 8 with the 4 divided by 1/2. This is now w minus 8 equals 5. A lot simpler. Since the 8 is being subtracted and we want the w by itself, we add it using inverse properties. The 8's cancel out and we're left with w equals 13. Make sure you check your answer by plugging 13 into w. You can either do it at the beginning of our equation or halfway through. For space's sake, I'm going to plug it in for this equation. 13 minus 8, we hope is 5. 13 minus 8 is 5. 5 equals 5 is indeed correct, so we know our answer is correct. In this part of our notes, we're going to apply our knowledge of solving simple equations with triangles. Triangles have interior angles that always add up to 180 degrees. We need to make sure that all of our triangles add up to 180 degrees. We're given 2 of the angles and not the third one, so that's what we're going to find out. I'm going to do it with the first triangle to your left of your notes. The angles we were given are 105 degrees and 40. We're needing to find what h is equal to. So all we do is add them up together and make sure they equal 180 degrees. We have h plus g plus I equals 180 degrees, our 3 different angles. Now I'm going to replace the numbers and plug them in. H stays the same because that's what we're going to find. G turns into 105 and I becomes 40, and they have to equal 180 degrees. We can simplify the left side of our equation. 105 plus 40 is 145. We bring everything else down, and now we have a simple equation. Because 145 is being added, we're going to do the inverse property by subtracting it and solve. H is equal to 35 degrees. What you do now is you add them up and make sure that all 3 angles do indeed add up to 180 degrees. We have 35 for h that we plugged in to our original equation. We have 105 for g and 40 for I. We know that they have to equal 180 degrees. 105 and 35, when they add together, we have 140 plus another 40 equals 180. These 2 guys add up together to be 180, so we know that our answers are correct. Please try the other 2 triangle problems on your own. The last part of our notes deals with real-life application or word problems. I'm going to do a couple examples with you, and what we're going to do is we're going to read the problem, create equations, and then solve them to find out the answer. The very first one is one we're going to do. Sally is baking a cake. The recipe calls for 8 cups of flour. I'm going to underline that because I know that's important. She already put in 3 cups. How many more cups does she need to add? We know that we need to have a total of 8 cups of flour to make sure that the cake recipe is correct. If she's already put in 3 cups, we know that it's a positive 3 because it has already happened, but we don't know how many more she needs to put in. The question mark, or what we're going to find, is C, and I'm putting C in for cups. You can put any variable you want. But 3 plus the unknown amount needs to equal 8 cups into the cake, and that's what our equation means. Now we have to solve it. Since 3 is positive, I'm going to subtract it so that it cancels out. And doing the subtraction property of equality, I'm going to do it to both sides. Those two cancel out, so C equals 5. That means that you need 5 more cups to get this recipe correct. Please make sure you label your answer. We're now going to do the second problem. How many ink cartridges can you buy with $108 if one cartridge costs $12? So we have $108 and each cartridge is $12. If each cartridge is 12, we can make a T-chart to figure it out or to help us create our equation. If there's one cartridge, the cost is $12. If there's 2, the cost would jump up to $24. So what you're doing is you're multiplying to get your answer. Our equation has to equal $108 because it's our total and we cannot go over it. So what we have 12 times our unknown. I'm replacing the unknown, which usually is a question mark, with an X. Our variable is X. 12 times however many cartridges we can buy has to equal $108. We can't go over that. Using inverse properties, 12 times X turns into division, and we divide both sides. X, or our unknown, is equal to 9 cartridges. We know that we can buy 9 cartridges with our amount of money. Please try the next 2 examples on your own.